Hi, welcome. My name is Dale McCluskey, and on this video I'd like to take a few minutes to discuss the difference between how the relational model approaches changing behavior and meeting the relational needs of dogs, and how the majority of learning-based models approach dog training and changing behavior. Now, the key difference here, which I've outlined, is I show that dogs are relational beings and that the decision-making process is influenced at this level. And when I talk about this level, I'm referring to the hierarchy within the pack relationship. I'm talking about how this special connection dogs share with us through nature, the critical role that plays when it comes to not only keeping behavior issues in check, but also pushing them back at the same time through meeting a dog's relational needs through this relationship. So this all goes into this concept of leadership, and I'm going to show the specifics of that through this video as it branches off and discuss some of these issues a little further. Now, how learning theory or learning models approach behavior, what I show is they respond from the tenets of the ideology itself. So if you look to, and I'm going to show this in this video, the hardened positions that this group have taken, it's going to be very clear that what they've done is they elevate the ideology above meeting the relational needs of dogs. Therefore, as a result, dogs are devalued because of that approach. So here, what branches off, some of the issues that branch off is this whole issue of pack theory. And if you read some of the statements that this group makes regarding pack influence, you'll see that they're trying to discredit this relational influence, and what they try to do is define pack as, how dogs associate as a loose group that doesn't have any influence or any role in when it comes to impacting dogs' decision-making process. Now, anyone that has any ability to be objective will see these statements as utterly ridiculous. And what I'm going to show here very clearly is that, again, you have to look at really the motives and intent for what this group says, and what it is always comes back to taking a position with defending this ideology and supporting the tenets that it's based on. So here, another issue that comes up quite often is this whole issue of dominance theory. Now, again, I make it very clear that if you don't understand dogs as relational beings that they really are, and the role that plays with impacting or influencing their decision-making process at the relational level, you certainly aren't going to understand what dominance represents either, because this goes right into it follows right into the same path of when people talk about the issue of physical force. What happens is, and even the issue of leadership, what happens is it becomes a convoluted mess, because if you ask anyone who identifies with this ideology, ask them what does dominance represent as it relates to their approach to training, you'll get 10 different answers. But the typical answer will be, well, beyond just leadership being a good thing to do, it really has no impact. In fact, what they're doing here through the ideology is attempting to hold a position that dogs can learn at such a level that you don't have to use any force at all on the dog. But again, what it shows, they're missing the whole boat when it comes to physical force and relational change, and what is promoting relational change. So this really goes to the core of the problem with this ideology. When you really start to step back and look at what I'm saying, you're going to see the contradictions and the reasons why this ideology, this learning theory, breaks down at certain points at the relational level. Now, what they're trying to do again is hold out or take a position that dogs are, individual beings that can be, trying to elevate dogs up into that type of cooperative learning level. Now, now learning theory, getting into the core of learning theory, again, it's the tenet is that dogs can learn. That's the whole idea that they're trying to promote. And what they're doing is they're taking dominance and they're really misrepresenting that whole issue. If you look at the language they use to package the whole dominance issue up, they're using it as a marketing tool. I mean, they're using inflammatory language to try to ignite the emotions of people. And what you're going to see here is emotions really do play a big role in this as well. When people are kind of relationally blind, so to speak, when it comes to physical response and appearances and the smoke and mirrors of learning theory. Now, what the whole premise again of learning ideology, one of them is that behavior can be modified through the tenets of learning theory. So they're talking about behavior modification. So what they'll do is, again, what their script is following is a path of the exterior, and this goes to, again, the heart of Skinner and Pavlov with behavioralism, and the whole concept that at that time that the cognitive was, or the psychology of science was pseudoscience, and that what could be seen from the exterior would provide answers to the cognitive, and this was the fatal flaw of this, because again, what was born from this is incomplete. It did not look at how a dog's decision-making process was influenced relationally through the pack relationship. There was no that wasn't taken into account at all. They established these ideas, and they used those as the cornerstones, so to speak, of this framework. So here, by going by that, one of the tenets of it is that physical response represents a similar mental state of mind, and what I show is that is not always the case. In fact, if you look at the 4 styles of parenting and look at the narcissistic, model or example, you'll see that the same thing with kids that are becoming very selfish and narcissistic. They lack empathy, and they start to see everything as a supply source. Well, this really provides an answer here as to why learning ideology, learning theory cannot always be trusted at the relational level, that you have to qualify what's going on just beyond physical response itself. You have to be very aware of that, and this whole learning ideology does not follow that path at all. They just basically what they say is, if it looks good and it feels good, it is good, and that's why when behavior does not change, it's because relationally no change has really happened at all. It's just very much very deceiving. So here again, they take the concept that learning theory can modify behavior, and what they're saying is it's basically learning ideology creates relational influence, but they don't. This is a non-relational way of approach. And so the result of this framework of learning ideology really goes into behaviors such as aggression are very problematic as a result. They have a difficult time overcoming aggression, fear aggression. This is where they get blindsided, because what I show is, when you start to look at this ideology, is that what's happening is you're getting associative change happening instead of relational change happening, and there's a big difference here. And what that represents is you're changing out the surface picture of things, so to speak, imagery, but relational change isn't happening. This is that same narcissistic example I use. So when you're using treats to make an association to something good, it does not always mean at all that the dog is seeing that person in the context of leadership. Therefore, the decision-making process of the dog may not change at all. You have to take a three-dimensional image, so to speak, and be able to qualify that and apply that to the decision-making process of the dog. Therefore, again, another result or another problem issue is that oftentimes behavior problems such as aggression are interpreted as a physiological condition, and so they're saying something therefore is wrong with the dog, when really it can be these issues of aggression just represent empowerment at a higher level, and they truly can be fixed at a relational level, but then it's shoved off as a medical problem, and you end up with a vet bill, or even through this ideology, because a lot of vets align with this ideology, you may end up with a vet bill before you even start training. Again, something wrong with the dog, and then the owner may accept the problem as not being able to fix it, and they end up drinking the same Kool-Aid as a result, and then it follows a path of medications, even problems in marital issues or problems in relationships with people due to a differing opinion as to what the solution is. Now, the relational model is based on changing behavior relationally. So the relational change, what I show relational change is what changes behavior. And it's therefore training is really a intervention. So how training is approached, how change is approached right out of the starting gate is totally different, because the focus is on relational change, changing how the dog owner thinks and interacts with the dog. And I'll bring them, and here this is where it goes into defining even the difference between relational corrective influence. I'm following a formula which goes into what I define as follower moments, a follower script. And if you see what I'm doing, it follows a three-dimensional view of the relationship, and I'm looking ahead with creating change. So you're going to see change happening very fast, because it's just like an echo. When the owner changes, the dog changes. So again, it's all relational. Again, physical response does not always represent similar mental state. Well, through this model, I qualify it. Okay, once right out of the starting gate, you don't have to worry about that, because it is aligning. It's going to follow the right path, and you're not going to have to worry about a disconnect taking place. Behavior is directly, again, I mentioned the narcissistic framework, and behavior is directly influenced at the relational level. I show how behavior issues branch off from this relational path, how the dog's a relational being, so everything branches off from that. And then associatively, okay, it's still associations can happen through empowerment before the intervention happens, but what I show is I call them relational triggers. The dogs can associate being empowered. That's why they want to be around certain people more than others, certain situations, because they're objectifying and they become very possessive. And that's something I help dog owners figure out. So the reason this ideology really is moving forward, this learning-based ideology is very popular, is because it aligns with people's permissive attitudes. And just like parenting, it's the same thing. People are mirroring their emotions through the relationship, and so they're doing that. So it's this whole thing about love. I show people, what does love really represent? It represents, stepping outside the ideological box and meeting the nature needs of dogs. So again, I show how to do that. One of the things, the evidence that this is an ideology and not science, is this group is trying to claim it is. The things to look for is contradictory statements by many experts. I lay this out in my book called The Mind and Body Connection. They make many contradictory statements. They'll say behavior is repressed rather than changed. I show this absolutely is not true at all. They'll say, well, yes, dominance type methodology works or can work, but there's a better way, and it represses behavior. I show this is utterly ridiculous. And this contradiction can be seen how they frame up fixed action patterns, instinctive behavior. I have a video talking about that. The leadership, physical force, and dominance issue, I've already discussed that, why they'll be all over the place when talking about that. And again, I discuss this as well, exploitative language. And what happens is ultimately dogs are devalued as a result. I mean, that's ultimately what happens. And you're going to get high fail rates, and people are accepting this based on their own permissive attitudes. So anyway, I just would encourage you to come into my site, really look at the relational model. Everything's laid out very clearly for people. My goal ultimately is to help people. I'm here to help. I can help you understand this and get online, and if you failed in the past or you've experienced limited results, this system of training can move you forward towards success. So just encourage you to check out my site. If you have any questions, you can call me or email me anytime. I'll be more than happy to answer all your questions. Thanks very much. Hope you have a great day.